So good afternoon. If you're joining for LIRS's preferred Refugee Employers Roundtable discussion, you're in the right place. If you're here by mistake, please stick around. Maybe you'll discover it turns out that you're in the right place. But in any event, thanks for tuning in. My name is Krish O'Mara-Vignaraja, and I serve as President and CEO of Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, otherwise known as LIRS. We are so thrilled to be having this important discussion with you. Just want to start with a few housekeeping items for our audience before we launch into the discussion. First, the session will be recorded and circulated after the event. We, of course, encourage you to share it with your colleagues, family members, congregations, friends, maybe even neighbors. Second, this will be one of LIRS's many discussions about economic empowerment for refugees and other immigrants. So I hope you will continue to stay engaged. You can do so through our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at @LIRS.org, as well as on LinkedIn and through our website at www.lirs.org. So at LIRS, we've seen the power of meaningful employment in the lives of newly arrived refugees. And we understand that an empowered living experience is better for both our clients, the communities they live in, and our organization. And that's why we are working to show how welcoming refugees and immigrants is a win-win for both the people seeking safety and the communities that welcome them. We know that immigrants bring talent, knowledge, and adaptability. Data shows they stimulate investment, increase our workforce, and make it more productive. They are unafraid to learn new skills and try new things. Immigrants are hardworking and more likely than native-born Americans to move to a new city for a job. They offer a wide range of skill sets and fill critical roles, both in declining and rising sectors. Just think about a couple of dynamics we're all too familiar with: inflation and the inability to hire. And an estimated 78% of immigrants are of working age, compared to just 49% foreign population. Yet, for many newcomers, there is little opportunity to land better than an entry-level job. So here's part of the issue. Resettlement agencies, like ourselves, typically don't have the resources to provide long-term job seekers support. And most mainstream workforce development agencies don't have the experience or capacity to serve immigrants and refugees. This can be problematic for both newcomers and local employers. 52% of jobs require skills training level that falls somewhere between a high school diploma and a bachelor's degree. But only 43% of American workers actually have that level of training. So refugees and immigrants are uniquely positioned to fill that gap, but typically lack access to the connections, education opportunities, and other resources needed to do so. And sorry, raise up, thanks. So we at LIRS recognize the US labor shortage provides a unique opportunity for refugee employment integration. We know that companies see refugee talent and the resettlement network as part of the solution to the workforce problem, and are willing to incentivize our clients to come work for them. A good job offers new American stability, independence, and a sense of belonging. But the advantages, of course, don't stop there. Companies that are committed to hiring refugee talent and willing to create an inclusive and welcoming environment reap the benefits of a strengthened workforce and economy powered by hardworking, dedicated employees. So hiring refugees is not just good for business, it's good for everyone. Refugee employers are legally authorized to work and bring a depth of experience and education to their work. Hiring refugees creates a diverse workforce with greater capacity for innovation and global perspective. We also know that refugee employees have significantly higher retention rates and typically demonstrate outstanding work ethic. So recognizing both the challenges and the advantages that refugees and employers face, LIRS refugee employer program that we're gathered here to talk about today. So LIRS is launching the Preferred Refugee Employer Initiative to deepen our partnership with employers who are committed to refugee hiring and willing to offer support and services that increase refugee access to employment services. We expect the program to raise the profile of both refugee talent and employers who demonstrate the value of economic empowerment. So preferred refugee employer status will be offered to companies who commit to fulfilling 5 of our best practices for refugee hiring. These are some of the tried and true ways that companies have reduced the barriers refugees often experience when integrating into the workforce. Our best practices include, but are not limited to, things like a refugee-specific recruiting pipeline, free of cost transportation, housing and childcare subsidies, ESOL adult education classes, vocational mentorship, a benefits package, and a living wage. Participating preferred refugee employers will receive the LRS seal of approval and become eligible for ongoing training and job marketing opportunities. More importantly, our preferred refugee employers will become proven pipelines for hiring and retaining refugee talent, strengthening their companies and inspiring a culture of welcome. So for our discussion today, we've assembled a panel of experts, including staff from preferred refugee employers, Pfizer and Monarch Investments, as well as affiliate partner staff and refugee clients, to talk about ways to engage your company and employees in the work of welcome. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel. First, we have Laura Deloria, a portfolio performance analyst at Monarch Investment and Management Group. Next, we have Cecilia Dogallo, a job developer at Lutheran Family Services of the Rocky Mountains. Also with us today is Nagina Niazi, who's a program manager at Pfizer, and Raheel Shah, a recruiting manager at Pfizer. Lastly, we have Reza Mohammadi, a junior staff accountant for Monarch Investment and Management Group, joining us today. Really, thanks to each of you for being here and to your employers for being part of this initiative. It really is with compassionate, forward-thinking people like you and your colleagues stepping up to the plate that we can ensure that refugees who've sought safety on our shores will be empowered to lay a strong foundation for their futures here in the US. Okay, so Cecilia, I want to start with you. Can you kick us off by explaining the employment process for refugees?
Sure. So we welcome our refugees and get them started with an employment intake. We go over all of the agreements that they should adhere to when it comes to employment within our agency when they're resettled. And after that, we do our best to go ahead and get them enrolled in job readiness training that we provide once a week at our office. It includes, etiquette training and resume creation, just kind of goes down the list of all of the different aspects that would be included in their individual employment plan. Maybe we'll go ahead and look at their previous work history and what their preferences are, regarding their first job. So after that, we also teach, financial literacy, budget trainings, a lot of direct care within our agency.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Now, Laura, I want to direct this question to you. Monarch created a position for you as a refugee recruiter. Can you tell us how that came to be and how your previous work in resettlement has informed your work today?
Absolutely. I'm so honored to be able to speak to you today. So at Monarch, our program is sort of been deemed the resettlement program. Was inspired by the crisis in Afghanistan in 2021. Our owner and CEO, Bob Nichols, saw an article about, the US withdrawal from Afghanistan and the anticipated displaced people who were US allies, very important to our efforts in Afghanistan, who would now be, without a place to be and to work. So he definitely saw the opportunity to obviously help those who were now facing the situation, as well as to benefit from these talented refugees. So my department, which is our corporate services team, was tasked with providing connections between resettlement agencies and other refugee-oriented organizations to help identify and facilitate job placement with refugee candidates. I actually got an email as a case manager, which Chris alluded to. I was a case manager at USCRI, that's the US Committee for Refugees and Immigrants. And so I received an email from my future coworker talking about this fantastic opportunity for both employment as well as discounted housing, because we are a company, Monarch Investment and Management, which owns and manages apartment complexes and multifamily living. So I was very excited to be able to connect, at the time, my client, soon my future coworker, Reza, he'll speak more on that soon, with the opportunity. And after he had been hired and started working with Monarch, I was approached by the corporate service team as well as Monarch's ownership to be offered to take over our resettlement program. And I find that my background in case management really helps to inform what the realities are around resettlement, what people are coming in with, what skills they have, and what are those kind of classic stumbling blocks that prevent them from being able to have the employment that they really would fit best with. And so I'm able to work, as I think of myself almost as like an interpreter role between our wonderful resettlement contacts and candidates and Monarch's corporate structure as well. So for example, I started in January of this year, so coming up on 1 year, and we started with just 2 resettlement employees, and Reza being one of them. And we've since grown to 22 hires and counting within the resettlement program. I help facilitate things like transportation, interpretation services, help with, supplementing some of those upfront potential expenses, as money is so tight when you're first starting out in the company. But I think that overall, it's been really helpful for me to be able to be the in-between facilitator between kind of our 2 groups, to be able to make sure that everyone understands what is needed from each side, and to work together to see if we can't come together to provide employment and discounted housing opportunities for our refugee employees.
Great. It's really remarkable to see that work, and obviously incredibly timely. So Reza, I think that leads us to you. Can you tell us about your experience coming to the US and finding a job? And how has working with Monarch impacted your resettlement and integration into your community? Reza, sorry, if you just unmute, then we can make sure we hear you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. So I think there are several aspects in all refugees' stories that starts with the sad part first. It's sad because at some point, these people have been forced to migrate and leave their home country where they were born, they live, they grown up, and they have undergone many hardships trying to make it to a new place where they hope they can have a safer and a better life. So the same goes for me as well. I remember it was mid-August 2021, and we were busy with our lives and work routines that regretfully Afghanistan government structure began to collapse. And until the last moment, we were hoping that the US government and international community will force and pressurize the Taliban and Afghanistan government to agree on a peace deal and to agree on an interim government. But it was very shocking, and at the same time, it was a very sad moment to hear that former president of the country fled to a neighboring country, and all the population, all the citizens of Afghanistan were completely in shock because of that. So I remember during that time, I was working as a provincial director for Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. For those who are not familiar with the Afghanistan administration structure, it's in such a way that, for example, in US, we have a US Department of Labor, but in Afghanistan, we have Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. In the US, we have states, but in Afghanistan, we have provinces. It's a little bit different. I was working as a provincial director for Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs in Daikundi province, which is far a little bit from Kabul. And the Taliban took the country completely, and we had no choice but to escape and go to villages and rural areas in order to hide. Otherwise, they could capture us and we would be killed. I remember we spent almost 3 days and nights inside the village, and we could just move from one place to another place during the night, and without being able to turn on the light when because otherwise the Taliban forces could suspect the movement activities, and they could trace us, and they could follow us and capture us and kill us. It was a very difficult situation, like moving around between the mountains for 3 days and nights. It was very difficult. I'm sure a lot of Afghans suffered from the same thing. But it took me 3 days to make it to Kabul, where I joined my family. And we saw in the news that U.S. government is planning to evacuate U.S. citizens and also U.S. government Afghan partners from Afghanistan. And this was a great news for me, and it was a hope for me, because everybody were running for their lives towards the borders and many towards the airport. And since I had the work experience of working with U.S. Army back in 2012 until 2015, and I had all of my documents with me, so we planned to go to the airport. So it was at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. the early morning. Then me and my family went to airport, and we somehow managed to reach to the U.S. soldiers over there. And I showed them the documents that I had, and I told them, "Hey, I've worked with you guys, and my life is in danger, my family's life is in danger, and please help us." And they helped us, and they welcomed us with open arms, and they allowed us to enter into the airport. And we spent 3 days inside the airport, but we were assured that we were safe inside the airport and nobody can hurt us for that. So flying with a military aircraft, we were sent to another US military base in Qatar. And after 2 days, we flew to Washington, D.C. Upon arrival in D.C., we were informed that we're going to fly again to Wisconsin to another military base. So it was almost a week that we didn't have any proper sleep, and the kids were so exhausted, and it was very difficult, but still we were happy that we were safe at least. So we arrived there and spent almost 3 months in Fort McCoy base in Wisconsin until all the immigration paperwork were completed, and then we were sent to Ohio, where I met Laura. Laura helped us a lot with like finding a nice place to our home, and I remember she mentioned that the landlord is planning to help refugees with providing them with housing and employment opportunities. So it was very great news for me and my wife, since it was already like 4 months that I didn't have any job. And I was so interested to join a company and start working as soon as possible. So knowing this housing and also at the same time employment opportunity excited me and my wife so much. And when Laura was helping us with transportation to see the new place to tour our apartment, I asked her what kind of jobs this employer is going to offer. And she said there are jobs like maintenance, groundskeeping, and custodians, and jobs like that. And uh, I shared my education and work experiences in Afghanistan with Laura, and I asked her if there would be any chance for me to get a desk job, like office job. And when Laura heard all the things about me, he was so happy, and he welcomed the idea. And she spoke to company's representative, and after I don't know a couple of very friendly interviews, they offered the job in the same property that my new home was. And with full excitement and energy, I started to work as leasing consultant. And I learned day by day from my supervisors. And also my coworkers helped me a lot getting better familiar with life and work cultures here in the US. And after working for 5 months in that position, I got another job with higher pay in accounting department in our corporate office here in Michigan. And it's been more than 6 months since I joined the accounting department. So I have to say that Monarch has very great programs for trainings. New hires are given the chance to complete online trainings on various topics related to their job through Monarch University. There are hands-on training conducted by our supervisors every day. Also, we have a mentorship program in which a senior employee of the company is assigned to the new hires as their mentors, and mentors walk employees through every task in detail. And whenever like we have any questions, we just reach out to them, and they help us in everyday job responsibilities. And also, there's also a tuition reimbursement program that we can use to enroll ourselves to outside institutions for further advancement in our career. We can take any classes. So, in conclusion, when I said there are various aspects in refugees' lives, and I mentioned the sad part, I mean, once they are settled in their destination, if they are able to adjust themselves by finding proper jobs, and families seeing their kids go to a school, here the happy part of the story begins. Just like for me, that it's been almost a year that I've had a wonderful journey in this beautiful country, have met and been welcomed by a lot of amazing people. And also this employment for Monarch has opened the windows of hope for me and my family. And I believe we have overcome all the nightmares and the sad parts of this journey. And now we are so excited and optimistic about what future may bring.
Well, Reza and Lara, thank you so much for sharing with us all the incredible work that Monarch is doing. I'm going to change gears and talk to a couple of our representatives from Pfizer. So Nagina, can you tell us more about Pfizer's commitment to refugee employment? Why has Pfizer prioritized this, and what has that commitment looked like?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Nagina Niazi. I'm the program manager for Pfizer's Refugee Leadership Initiative. I just want to say thank you so much for having us on the call. We're really excited to share more about our initiative. LRS was one of the very first partners that we worked with as part of our initiative, but it all started very shortly after the tragedy in Afghanistan and also Haiti, actually. There was a huge refugee crisis coming from both countries. And our CEO made the announcement, and he set the enterprise-wide goal of hiring 100 refugees through the year of 2022, as well as mentoring 150 refugees with a focus on at least 50 being refugees who identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community. And so I'm really happy to say that, Pfizer actually has exceeded that goal for 2022. And due to that, we have now set a new goal for ourselves where through 2025, we are hoping to hire an additional 500 refugees. So by the end of 2025, we're hoping that in the US, we've got a total of 600 refugees that we've hired. And we are extending our commitment for mentorship as well, where we're hoping to mentor an additional 150. And I do have to say, after our CEO made the commitment last October, we had created a form encouraging colleagues to sign up to volunteer. So we were asking colleagues to volunteer as mentors, to volunteer as onboarding buddies, to just kind of like share their stories and why they're excited about the initiative. And the support was mind-blowing. I mean, you don't realize how many people can connect to stories that refugees have to share, and how many people are the refugees themselves that are already at the company, whose parents were refugees, whose other relatives or friends might have been refugees. There were many people who felt connected to the cause, or may have just, had that empathy in them to say, like, I want to do something to help. And so we had over 400 colleagues within 3 weeks sign up and say, we want to be mentors to refugees. I do have to say that because there's been so much support coming internally, it's really allowed the initiative to be as successful as it is across the board. We're not hiring in just our manufacturing sites. We've also been hiring in a lot of our professional roles as well. I think one of the first things we did as part of our recruitment efforts was actually go to military bases at Fort Dix in New Jersey. And the very first visit was emotional. I myself come from an Afghan background. My parents came to the US days before I was born. And so, I believe in everything happening for a reason. And seeing the fall of Afghanistan this time around was pretty traumatic for me because, when 9/11 happened, I was a kid and I couldn't really comprehend the effect that it was having on Afghanistan. But this time around, it was mourning that my parents were doing, and I was grieving alongside them because you feel helpless. And so being able to do something was just so amazing. And I remember the first visit that we had with the Fort Dix military base camp was extremely emotional. A lot of people were not sure what was coming next for them. And we had gone there with the intent of just telling them about Pfizer and talking to them about the opportunities that are here, about the culture here, emphasizing that we're going to look past educational barriers or language barriers. But it was there that we realized a lot of the refugees are not just people who don't have an education. I think that was a bias that, I have to admit, a lot of our team went into that base camp with, where we were thinking that a lot of our refugees that we were going to come across would fill our manufacturing roles. And it wasn't until we actually started talking to people that were like, oh, okay, there's people who are doctors and lawyers and engineers, and they're so talented and skilled. And I remember telling our program lead, my parents didn't come to the US and decide that they wanted to be restaurant owners. They had dreams in Afghanistan. My mom wanted to be a journalist. My dad was a civil engineer. They couldn't carry those dreams out in the US. So it's the fact that we're able to actually support people's dreams and kind of reinforce the fact that, you have these really tangible skills. Let's find a place at Pfizer where you can apply those skills. And that's where our amazing recruiters come in. So Raheel is a recruiter that has been working with us from the very beginning. I want to say about a month after the initiative officially kicked off. We only had one hire without Raheel, and that was in February. As soon as Raheel joined, we were like skyrocketing with our offers, and everyone was so engaged. She was going above and beyond, reaching out to the communities and creating connections. And I do have to say that we have seen a lot of our colleagues extremely excited about this, even for those who have refugees on their teams now. And I also want to clarify that once we hire refugees at Pfizer, we don't refer to them as refugees. We actually refer to them as our newcomers, because we want to make sure that we are being sensitive of the fact that, you know, they're starting a new journey in life and they don't have to continue to identify as that if they don't want to. But a lot of our newcomers and their teams have given us the feedback that they feel very supported, where their colleagues and the people that they work with are so excited to make sure that they're comfortable and actually learning the different processes, the different organization structures, a lot of support. And so it's really beautiful to see, especially in our manufacturing sites where, you know, we've established a prayer room for a lot of our colleagues, and we sure that for those that don't eat pork, you know, we're using different grills to cook their lunches. And so it's just like really beautiful to see the support that we're getting across the board, from a cultural perspective as well.
Thank you for providing that wonderful overview. And I want to ask your colleague, Raheel, can you talk more about what Pfizer offers refugees and what impact do these offerings have on the recruitment process?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. Sorry, I was getting a little emotional while Nagina was talking about her family and her history. A little bit about my background. I actually came into the country as a refugee myself, so I'm very well aware. Sorry, let me backtrack. I'm an Afghan American. I came into the country as a refugee. So I'm very well aware of what it's like to not know the future. I came into the country at 5 years old. My father was actually an engineer as well. And yeah, I just, sorry, I just got a little emotional. But yeah, I've started with Pfizer since January, and hang on one second. So your question was, what accommodations have Pfizer made?
Yeah, so it was a bit about you know, how has Pfizer tried to offer opportunities for refugees, and then what impact do those sorts of offerings have on the recruitment process?
Absolutely. So the jobs, just like Nagina mentioned, at first when I started, we were focusing a lot on manufacturing. Since then, I've been screening a lot of candidates. We've been amazed with backgrounds of folks that speak 5 to 6 different languages. With people that actually, some of them have master's degrees from the US, UK, they studied here, they went back to Afghanistan, fall of Afghanistan happened, they came back. So we've been doing a lot of, me and another refugee recruiter, have been doing a lot of manual matchmaking, where actually I do speak to the hiring managers and I ask that, hey, you know, we have the refugees that meet maybe 70 or 80% of the criteria. Is there some room to relax on some of the areas that they don't meet? So a lot of our, I want to say, success is because of a lot of manual matchmaking. And for our refugees, for our manufacturing sites, we have been assisting them with sign-on bonuses. These sign-on bonuses go a long way with them purchasing a car and their resettlements in the US.
Great, and could you touch a little bit on the pre accommodations?
The pre-accommodations, like what other type of accommodations Pfizer supports? Yeah. Okay. Besides sign-on bonuses, we've also been doing ESL classes for a lot of our manufacturing colleagues that speak basic English. The other ones are just any other training that they're lacking. For example, there was a professional that went into a procurement role, and he was basic with his Excel skills. So I made sure that he's taking the required classes that the role requires him. So we pretty much gauge each role and what the need is for each person. We cater it.
Yeah, I think that customized attention.
Very customized, absolutely.
Critical.
Absolutely.
So Cecilia, I want to come back to you. While these practices are critically important, it feels like it's just as important to have community support. So how can companies work to build more holistically welcoming and inclusive communities across the country?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I can only imagine how terrifying it is to be resettled and, you know, to be just that feeling of being alone, not knowing anyone really within your community. And I really think that a lot of the panelists have really touched on a ton of different ways that they can show support within their community. So maybe this could be shown, you know, by selecting a designated representative within the organization that can help streamline the process of hiring the refugees, and also perhaps reach out within the community to local churches, places of worship, clubs, cultural community events, just make their presence known that they are a safe place, they're welcoming, and they're ready to hire refugees. Also, I really appreciate what Riza was saying earlier about how he kind of had that advantage of like bypassing the typical requirements of, you know, maybe a higher entry job rather than, you know, what we would expect for most employers to offer to our newcomers. A lot of times it is, you know, an entry-level position that doesn't hire with very competitive pay. So I think it's amazing when our employers are able to kind of bypass that typical educational document requirement. You know, like Nagina said, a lot of our clients are coming from very diverse backgrounds, you know, highly educated, you know, multilingual, doctors, lawyers, engineers, but it is a lengthy time process to get those international degree transferships. So when employers are understanding and accommodating of that issue or that hurdle that our clients are facing, it's amazing. They can, you know, perhaps just, you know, give them that opportunity that that they might deserve, you know, coming in early. So also, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, if I could just also build on what you're mentioning, Cecilia. So I do believe that a lot of companies have equity as a major value of theirs, right? And so when it comes to refugee employment, we really have to make sure we're holding our executive leaders and our business sponsors, our senior leaders across the company accountable to making sure they are being equitable when they're giving offers, when they're considering candidates, when they're even considering giving a candidate an opportunity, such as Reza, for example, not having to have his educational background paperwork. You know, we have to keep in mind that refugees, we don't know what circumstances they're coming from. So we can't assume that they're going to have that paperwork handy. And you kind of have to really just trust that those refugees are being honest. And really it comes to a point where during the interview process, you're supposed to test their skills and have those conversations with them where you're, you know, assessing whether or not they're capable to do the role, because that's ultimately what they need to be able to do, right? And so I don't think that looking for proof of their education should be the primary focus when you're hiring a refugee candidate. And so I do think that, you know, it's important to hold our companies accountable to upholding equity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that statement. I guess some of the other hurdles that I see when it comes to employment services, you know, for those that are, you know, just super new arrivals. Typically, we like to see employment happen within the first 90 days. It's, you know, it's got to be scary, you know, to just get thrown out into the field of employment, the employment realm as a newcomer. So, sometimes those entry-level jobs can just serve as a stepping stone. And I try to, just help my clients to understand that and just assure them that, there are opportunities for upgrades later on. But when employers can really show the new hires that, or just, reassure them that those opportunities are available, I think that that's a great benefit. Also, transportation, that's a huge thing. We really try to secure housing nearby, public transportation lines, or, near like shopping centers or just other areas that, may have, areas that, may be good selections for employment. But, that's not always the case, and it does become a major hurdle. And of course, when they're resettled, a stipend isn't going to allow, that amount in their budget to save up for a vehicle. And it takes a while, to study for your driver's test and, become licensed to drive. So within that first time period, I think that another great, initiative for our PRUs would be to perhaps, maybe touch on hiring incentives or bonuses, for, maybe after the first 30 days, they may have a bonus, or even just free transportation. Like we talked about earlier, maybe a shuttle, at least for the first couple of months, so that they can save up their money. We see a lot of our clients paying a lot of money for Uber and Lyft. So yeah.
Thank you for that question. And Riz, I want to ask you the last question and give you the final word. Why would you encourage the companies on this call to prioritize refugee employment?
Yeah, thank you. So there could be a lot of reasons, but those reasons that come to my mind now could be, first of all, first and foremost thing, I'm sure that refugees are very hardworking people because they have been through a lot of hardships in life, and this has made them to be very tough. And I was speaking to Laura always. We are tough, especially we Afghans. We know each other because we have been through a lot of bad situations and circumstances. So this makes refugees to be a very hardworking people. And another reason for that we should be hardworking, but because we have families that we need to support them. When we have families in Afghanistan, we have relatives, and they're struggling with the economic condition as well as the political situation. So we have to take care of them also, at least maybe like a few amount of money. So but that was the first reason. Another would be, I think hiring refugees will definitely promote the diversity and inclusion within the companies. And these refugees have different kind of backgrounds, and they can offer new perspectives, new ideas, which can lead to a better customer service and at least improved operations. Another reason would be there are refugees who are very talented people and very hardworking people, and these people may be overlooked due to their accent, maybe, and maybe because of the gaps in their work experiences when they submit their resumes, and maybe the employers will see, oh, there's gap, and if they know the reality, the employers know the reality, and they can really get benefit from these talents and all these underutilized skills. Another reason would be, I believe that refugees are shown to have higher retention rates, because in today's market, one of the most challenges that companies face is the staff turnover, and hiring refugees will definitely help to lower this staff turnover and expenses related to losing the person.
That's great. I hesitate to bring this discussion to a close just because it has been so informative, but I know we are at time. So I just want to say thank you to our outstanding panelists and each and every one of you for taking the time to join us. LIRS is really excited to work with people like you to make a positive impact on the lives of our new neighbors through economic empowerment and by really creating those welcoming environments in our workplaces and communities. So please reach out to LIRS's program officer, Molly Tidwell, who's here with us today for more information about the Preferred Refugee Employers Program, or you can also access our employer partnership form online. And then I'll just end by saying on behalf of the LIRS team and our network, partners, volunteers, and clients, thank you for your interest in the work of welcoming the stranger. We really couldn't do this without the support of engaged partners like you. Have a great afternoon.